talk of possible bank nationalization playing out on Capitol Hill.
We have reaction from both sides of the aisle right now. We're happy to be joined by Democratic Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Wisconsin and Republican Congressman Jen Hensarling of Texas. Welcome to both of you. Representative Jen Hensarling, let me get to you first. Clearly the Republicans have dug in their feet on many of the issues that President Obama has pushed forth. Right now, do you think it is important to take a large stake in a Citigroup type of bank to save it, to keep the confidence in our banking system strong?
Well, clearly we have a confidence problem in our banking system, but going down the path of nationalization is not the way to go. I see no compelling reason to give the United States Congress a seat at the board of directors. I mean, these are the people who brought us into this economic turmoil in the first place. Regardless of how noble the policies might have been, they backed policies to put people in homes who couldn't afford them. So you look at Fannie and Freddie, you look at the Community Reinvestment Act, a number of government policies brought us here in the first place. Congress has brought us the single largest debt and deficit in the history of the nation. These people are supposed to run our banks now. My mother once said life is full of lousy options, but nationalizing the banks is the least preferred option.
Well, Congresswoman, we don't only have to look at Fannie and Freddie. We can look at IndyMac, which the government has been managing for about a year now. Hasn't been able to pass on IndyMac to any welcome buyers either. So its track record is really miserable with banking institutions of any kind.
Well, I can tell you what IndyMac has been able to do. The FDIC has essentially sort of taken that bank over. They've done what other banks that we've given the TARP money haven't done, and that's to modify loans to troubled homeowners. I can tell you that the vernacular is really troubling to Americans. Nationalizing banks sort of sounds socialistic. But
it is socialistic, Congresswoman. That's exactly what it is.
I can tell you that it's as the New York Times would put it, is the least bad solution. We've already put $45 billion into these banks that won't lend any money whatsoever. At least by swapping our preferred shares for the common stock, wouldn't cost us any additional money, but at least we'd be in a position to make these banks, engage in loan modifications and perhaps keep more folk in their homes.
Well, Representative Hensarling, what we're seeing now on Wall Street is they want more details and whether really the government will step up with a bad bank model. We know the private-public financing mechanism that the Treasury Secretary has put in place. Will we see a bad bank model? We haven't seen many private investors step up to say, yeah, we're going to go in with the Treasury and the government to do that. We see Blackstone, maybe BlackRock. Not a lot of people coming in here right now.
Well, why would they? Until we get some kind of certainty in public policy in Washington. You got trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines trying to figure out, is Congress going to bail me out? Is Congress going to bail my competitor out? Is Congress going to bail my customer out? I mean, who would come into such a market? And so what we need, among other things, again, is some amount of certainty. The people, I mean, there has been no greater regulated industry in America than housing, real estate, and banking, and that's what has precipitated this economic turmoil, something that government had a quasi-control of in the first place, and now we're going to give them more control.
Well, Representative,
listen, if they need more capital, you can do it through the preferred stock. Again, the only reason to convert to the common stock is for Congress to start running our banks, and they're going to once again start lending more money to people who can't afford to pay
your
back.
bank, your state of Texas, Representative, is last I checked, this could have changed. Was expected to get about $10 billion of the stimulus money. Is your state going to take it?
Well, I'm a congressman. I'm not a governor. I think it was an ill-advised piece of legislation following Japan's model of Keynesian stimulus after Keynesian stimulus. But if they're going to send the money, you might as well use it. But if they're going to send us $10 billion, my guess is they're going to charge us $15 billion for the 10. But you'd have to speak to our governor and our legislature.
Would you advise your governor to take the money?
Well, again, I'd have to look at and see all the provisos. In some cases, the governors say it's going to cost us more to accept it because of all the strings that come attached. Listen, we need to work our way out of this great economic turmoil, but the way to do that is to help small business. Economic recovery doesn't run through the halls of Congress. It doesn't run through Wall Street. It runs through the small businesses of Main Street, and that's why Republicans have put out an alternative that would put more capital in the businesses of those who create jobs and preserve jobs, and hopefully enlarge the family paycheck as well.
Gotcha. Congresswoman, you mentioned IndyMac. You said you're happy with the lending it's giving out, but they can't find a buyer. Why do you think it is that IndyMac, which has been managed by the government for so long now, for so many months, cannot find a suitable buyer?
Well, I do think that my colleague made a very important point that we shouldn't gloss over, and that is that the government does need to initiate these stress tests. I don't think investors really know where the bottom is and really know what their exposure is. And I think that these stress tests, while they may stress out investors, I think that there's nothing like the truth in order to get us back on track to see where the bottom is. In terms of the TARP, I can tell you that part of the tax breaks within the TARP are to give small businesses carry back of their losses for 5 years, for example. It's going to be extremely important. Governors across the country are most certainly going to tap into these funds, as most of the states are faced with huge Medicaid costs and other health care costs, as we see thousands upon thousands of jobs being lost in this economy. And certainly the infrastructure projects, I mean, dangerous situations where bridges are crumbling, things that have been deferred maintenance are going to be able to be met. So I do think that most of these governors are going to take 95% of this money, if not all.
Representative Moore and Representative Hensarling, thank you very much, both, for giving us your sides of this issue. We love to have both sides to represent here. It's important.
We do indeed.
Thank you.
Well, the governors are being